I'm very excited about our next speaker. This is someone that I really wanted to speak. It took a few months to get her to agree to join us, and I'm really happy that Sarah's here. So without further ado, Sarah Hardwick, the CEO of Zenzi.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Tom, can you hear me in the back? All right. Cool. Okay, cool. Great. Well, I'm going to start off today with a little bit of background about our methodology. Our area of marketing that we focus on at Zenzi is pretty unique. It's called values-based marketing, also known as psychographic marketing. You may have heard of a little company called Cambridge Analytica that made it a little bit famous earlier in the year. So I'm going to talk about what values marketing is, the science behind it, how you can leverage it to improve patient experience and marketing ROI. Sound good? And I'm going to leave lots of time for questions because it gets a little complicated. The psychology stuff's a little deep. So, sound good? All good? Nods? Okay, great. Okay, so just quick overview on myself. I started my company Zenzi in 2002. And so for years, we worked for big companies like Nestle and Chiquita and Ghirardelli Chocolate, and we would do these huge national consumer marketing programs. We would plant, 100 tree orchards, or we would do, sticker contests, you name it. And after about 10 years, one of the things we started to realize was very clear. There was a big difference between some campaigns and the success of some over others. And there was actually a common thread. So in working with companies like Nestle, oftentimes they would have literally, $500,000 worth of market research, of this deep, rich, psychographic research, all about the values of their consumers. And if you're Nestle, you can have someone go and sit at breakfast with their customers and ask them all these questions. And so they had the budget to afford this really wonderful, information. But not every company is like Nestle. And so I thought, well, that's great. I ought to be able to go and find a way to uncover the values of customers. So for companies like Nestle that don't have those budgets, they can get the benefit of these insights and these great campaigns. Well, lo and behold, what I discovered was that there's 40 years of psychology proving how predictive values are in driving consumer behavior in every decision. But yet there was no way to connect that psychology to practical marketing. So I couldn't do a values-based social media campaign. Like, what does that look like? What words do you use? What images do I use? So there was this huge gap between what academics and universities were studying and the information and the knowledge that I needed as a marketer. So I went to San Francisco State University to their psychology department, and I formed a partnership. And I said, hey guys, we need this information. And I said, I'll give all of your graduate students jobs if we can get this thing going. And so to this day, actually, we have 4 graduate level researchers and as well as the professor of the psychology department assisting with our research. So what they built for us, this is about 5 years ago, was a methodology for measuring values through a survey and then also through a software tool. And then what we built was the connection to marketing. So a huge database of all of the different insights to be able to allow you to more effectively speak to people in a way that's going to really resonate with them on a very personal level. So that's where we're at. So this is the problem that we're dealing with. Here's a typical scenario. Here's a company, and I'm going to read this because I know it's hard to see in the back. Here's a company that's about to launch their new ad campaign. And the boss is saying, does it show our unique selling proposition? Check. Prominent branding? Check. A list of our benefits? Check. A packaging close-up? Check. Got that. Our hashtag at the end, of course. Check. Looks like a great ad. What's the story? Oh, not sure yet. And for me, that really articulates the problem, in a lot of marketing, and it's not just in medtech, it's really in marketing across the board today, is that we are getting so caught up with the functional benefits and really checking the boxes. Do we got a Facebook strategy? Check. Someone's on Facebook. What are they doing? What's the story? I don't know. Does it really matter? But it actually does matter. And when you don't have the story, you lose the personal connection. What about your purpose? What about your values? I know we're going to talk a little bit about brand strategy later, but the core of your brand strategy starts with who you are and what you stand for. And so when you lose that aspect of that storytelling and really connecting with people on that personal level, it's a really big deal. And it's a big deal because we don't make buying decisions on a functional basis. 2/3 of the decisions that we make are based on emotional factors. So we're making decisions based on our heart and our gut and our intuition. We're not making them logically, with our rational brain. And another thing that's happening is over time, our values are actually changing. And more, rather than just, buying a product, we're looking for companies to feel a deeper psychological need in our lives. So we're making decisions differently. The way that we find a doctor is different. I actually used PlushCare yesterday. I don't know if you guys have ever used any telemedicine, but I went online, I Skyped with the doctor, I got my prescription refilled, and that was it. So the way that we're accessing, finding new products or new solutions, or finding, med tech devices, finding ways to improve my health. I'm not going to my doctor and asking all the time what I should do. I'm actually doing my own research. Another interesting fact is, so Gen Z is the generation that's actually more likely than any to buy based on values. So they really care what your company stands for, and they're expecting that you better be able to stand for something and articulate that. One more little psychological thing. So do you guys remember Maslow's hierarchy? Yeah? So remember like the big pyramid? So at the base of the pyramid is the very functional place. It's absolutely like basic needs. And then, so Abraham Maslow was a psychologist from the 40s, and his idea was that we're always moving up the pyramid towards a place of self-actualization. And so right now, at the base of that pyramid, that's where most marketers are playing, where it's just very functional. But as you start to move up the pyramid, you start to meet those psychological needs. And instead of just providing a product, you're making someone feel cool, or feel safe, or give them status, or feel free. And so as you start to move up there, that's where you can actually build more brand equity. Because at the base of the pyramid, there's nowhere to play, there's nothing to differentiate you except for price. So at that base level, that's the only thing that will differentiate competing offers. So if you want to get out there and this, Randa talked about the number of products that are going to be on the market and all this competition, if you want to differentiate yourself, you better have a really clear understanding of your brand values and how you're going to meet the psychological needs of your customers. And those can be B2B or B2C. And we can talk a little bit about that later. Make sense? All good? Okay. Okay, so as I was saying, people are expecting a very personal level of communication. So now they expect that, for example, when I'm walking into CVS, this is the future. So quick stat, by 2020 the experts say that all marketing and advertising will be personalized to the individual level. So for example, I'm walking into CVS, I'm either recognized maybe by facial recognition technology, which is not far away, or beacon technology, and it pings the store, okay, CVS, Sarah's in the store, I get a text message that says, hey Sarah, it's time for your flu shot. But not just that, it's going to give me a message in the way that I am most likely to receive it based on my values. So it might say, Sarah, you got a preschooler, you're going to be bringing home a ton of germs, don't get sick, get that flu shot. Or it might say, Sarah, you got a lot of skiing to do this winter. You better stay healthy so you can really hit all those awesome double blacks. So those are very different messages. And in the future, I'm going to expect that those messages are personalized to me based on the way that I want to feel about it. So this is where we're going to get a little psychology, get a little deep. Can you guys kind of see that? I know it's really hard to see things back in the back. I can, okay. So I'll walk through them quickly, and then we'll talk a little bit about what each of these means. So these are not random values that we just made up. They're actually built on the 40 years of scientific research from a guy named Shalom Schwartz. And he's the creator of the basic theory of human values. And so he had like a 150 question survey and lots of other values. And so working with San Francisco State, we distilled these down to the 6 values that are the most important for driving purchase behavior. And then we've actually surveyed 250,000 people to create marketing correlations around each of these. So if I know my customer is a purpose seeker, I know who's going to influence their behavior, what social media channels they're most active on, what their motivation is for sharing on those social channels. So let me walk you through these really quickly. So first off, a couple things about this sphere. The way that these 6 types are organized is important. They're actually organized as opposites. So freedom seeker What's important and what is at the essence and core of a freedom seeker is polar opposite of a security seeker. So the closer these two types are together, the more alike they are. There's also a couple other differentiators. For example, these top focused values, they're called we call them self-focused values. So that's more about what I'm gonna get. It's about me, it's about meeting my needs. These values down here are what we call other focused values. So I care more about the well-being of the community, of my family, than I do about my own needs. There's also some other interesting things where this half is more risky. So we actually just did a big study for the cannabis industry and found, of course, as expected, you can imagine some of these values are way more likely to try new things and to be risky versus some people over here, like a security seeker, they're gonna say, no way, that stuff's illegal, I don't care if it's legal, I don't know, I don't even wanna know, I'm not gonna even go there. So you can see the difference. So what's important is that if you're speaking, whether or not you know it, you're speaking to one or more of these values. And if you're speaking to a freedom seeker and your customers are security seekers, you are going to polar repel them. So it's actually going to turn them off. Have you ever been or met someone, for example, that you just want to put your hands up and go they're not my person, they just drive you nuts, or seen an ad that what were they even thinking when they created this? Holy moly. Remind me that's there. My high heels just went right in there. So that's the effect of, it's called cognitive dissonance. And that's when you are faced with messages that do not align with your values, and it just gives you this effect of ugh, get me out of here. So everyone in this room and every one of your customers has one or more of these 6 values inside of them. Now, you may have multiple values, but at the end of the day, there'll be one value that's your driving value, that is the reason you make purchase decisions. It will be the one that will weigh out over others. So really quick, you've got freedom, which is me. So I'm an entrepreneur. It's the Steve Jobs. It's the risk takers. I don't, job, whatever. I don't need a stable job. I'll make things happen. That kind of attitude. Then you've got purpose seekers. So we've got any Whole Foods shoppers out here, Prius drivers. Yeah, Dan's probably a purpose seeker. And these are where really, it's like my mom. Her job was working for the homeless, and then working for seniors, and then working with drug addicted. Some people just, they love feeling like they're giving back, and so that's purpose seekers. Tradition seekers, they're about doing the things that they find value in passing on and carrying on traditions. So maybe they would probably go to the same vacation spot every year. They might go to the same fishing hole that their grandpa went. So they really, they find joy and they find meaning out of perpetuating these symbolic traditions. I talked about security seekers. These are the coupon clippers. These are the people where they're going to get a new washing machine, for example. They have analyzed 7 different kinds. They know exactly where they're going to get the rebate. They know exactly what day to buy it on, when they're going to have the big sale. And so they're very, very detail-oriented, very practical. They care a lot about their family. Any BMW drivers out there? Anyone? No? Okay, well, you may or may not be an achievement seeker, and that's totally okay. Achievement seekers, they kind of get a bad rap, I think. I feel bad. Sometimes even asking that question, I'm like, actually, achievement seekers are great because they're very driven, they're very motivated, they're very focused on, what they need to do to move up and to be successful. And then the last group is pleasure seekers. And these are all about living in the now. It's about what feels good to me. So it could be something very adventurous, like, bungee jumping, but it could be reading a book on your back porch. So it's whatever feels good to you in the moment. So when you think about marketing and you think about segmenting your audience, think about going beyond demographics. I'll give you a quick example. So if you think about just strictly how we've always marketed, right? Demographic-based marketing. I have a college roommate from college who lives near me in San Diego. So we're the same age. We're the same income, went to the same school. By all intents and purposes, with normal segmentation, we would be marketed to exactly the same way, right? But we have a dramatic difference, which is I'm a freedom seeker and she's a tradition seeker. So when it came time to have, we were both pregnant at the same time, I found the doctor that was female, young, all the new technology, doing all this cool, Eastern, different stuff. She went to the guy who had been practicing medicine for 45 years, super traditional, no surprises, probably like the doctor her parents would have picked. So, when it comes to health and wellness, freedom seekers are about the latest and greatest. They're going to be the ones who are going to try the new devices. They're going to be the ones who are more likely to use PlushCare telemedicine and feel like I'm getting a good quality care, versus some of these other value types. So you can really see how these understanding and being able to speak to these groups can be pretty critically important. Make sense? Okay, awesome. And then one more thing to really think about is, so are you guys familiar with the 80-20 rule, right? So basically it says that, the 20%, by putting your focus on that 20%, those could potentially be your advocates. That's where you're going to get the greatest ROI. So when you think about, who you're going to market to, and I think, is this first Scott, first speaker? Chuck. So Chuck talked about identifying your ideal market and identifying your ideal customer. And so in this way, you need to identify who your ideal customer is, not only from a demographic or a job function basis, but a values basis. Because when you find that sweet spot, that customer is going to be the one who's most likely to share on social, to refer you, to come back and buy again. So really understanding the combination between what you stand for and what your company's all about and what your customers really care about, that's the ideal customer. Okay, so now I'm going to give you guys some examples of how values marketing is being used in healthcare today. Just a couple quick ones. I thought it was funny because Rand's talk, he mentioned GE Healthcare. And so GE Healthcare is a freedom-seeking company. And by that, I mean, whether or not you know it as a company, as a brand, what you're putting out is attracting one value type over another. Or maybe you don't have any values-based messaging and it's kind of watered down and functional, right? Like we talked about at the beginning. But GE is a great example of a freedom-seeking brand. And so you can see just even in the words that they use, so the wonder material, capturing a clear picture of the world within. You can see the imagery that they're using. This one's walking recharges brain energy and may stimulate creativity. So as a freedom seeker, it's not just about like, I'm going to get my exercise. It's about, I'm going to be more creative. I'm going to be smarter. It's these emotional benefits, and it's really speaking directly to a very specific kind of person who is the latest and greatest technology, who feels really kind of independent and that type of person. And then the same thing here where it's all about data. These are very, intelligent, kind of smart people. Does this make sense to you guys intuitively? Okay. And this is where you, thinking from a competitive standpoint, I could go and look at any of your social media channels and your websites and you're projecting something out there. So understanding and just being cognizant of what you're projecting out there compared to your competition is really critical. And now here's a pleasure-seeking brand, which is Kaiser. I think this is like from a year ago or so, an older ad campaign, but they're all about pleasure. And so even though there's the basic, like they're healthcare, so it's about health, that's the basic, right? But then it's about life is amazing. It's this idea of living in the moment, in every moment. It's, about laughter. And so it isn't just about, and even like looking at the imagery and the pictures, it's a little more whimsical, it's a little more creative. It's laughing, it's laughter. You can kind of see a little bit. And then this is something that we actually do a lot. So we'll talk next, or just for a second, about how you can uncover values within your customers and how you can speak to them. But a big thing that we focus on at Zenzi is testing. And really, okay, we may have two groups, because oftentimes, so if you're a Walgreens, in this example, you probably have more than one values-based customer segment that you're going after. And so understanding which is the most beneficial, or even having different strategies to communicate to two different audiences is important. So you've got your purpose-seeking ad here, which is about, can your flu shot create more teachers, doctors, musicians? Great. And then there you've got Tori Spelling speaking to the achievement seekers, where they care about the status. They want to see a celebrity. They care about what Tori's doing. So it's, oh, and take your selfie, So you've got two dramatically different value types being targeted for the same campaign by the same company. And so you just have to be really careful about this, because you either seem kind of schizophrenic, or you could really want to target those messages properly. So, but it is possible to test and see which is going to work best and resonate best for your customers. Okay, so with that, I'll give you kind of 3 key takeaways, and then I can open it up to questions, because I know I covered a lot and we talked quickly, but really just focusing on the idea of emotional and values-based storytelling. When you're putting out these testimonials about patients, it isn't about, well, I hurt my knee and, then I got this device and now it feels better. It's like, why? It's uncovering the why behind and really putting those stories at the forefront of your communications efforts. It's about focusing on how it makes people feel. So even just as simple, like we worked with a medical device company in San Diego, and they had, for every new patient, they had a standard set list of questions that they would ask, from which the testimonials and the stories would be developed, right? But there was no why in there. And so every single story sounded exactly the same. I met my doctor, and then my pain went away, and I lived happily ever after. But there was no meat, there's no heart and soul. And so just by inserting some values-based questions into their normal customer intake process or to their normal marketing process, it added this level of richness that really makes a difference between this functional message I don't connect with and something that really speaks to me as an individual. And then third, uncover the psychographics of your audience and segment accordingly. So don't just stop at demographics and really start to think about who are they, where do they shop, what influences their decisions, and really look at on an inner level, what are they striving towards on that pyramid, where are they going, what do they want? And that can be done through surveying, that can be done through looking at the comments that people, we do a lot of data analysis, and we'll mine the comments that people are making in reviews. And we can say, ooh, your best customers have this value type. Your worst, oh boy, don't go after these guys, they're this. And you can really see some clear differences in who your customers are, just looking at the comments that they're making. So just being aware of this and starting to think about uncovering, using research to really uncover the values of your customers and segment that way is great. And then once you're there, use those words, the imagery. Do they want to see a shot of like a cold clinic with no people, or is it people? Is it objects or families? How can you use the right imagery? How can you use the right tone of voice? Do they want an expert voice, like third party, like voice of God, or do they want a friend, a best friend telling them? So all of these decisions that you'll be making when it comes to your brand strategy can be driven and can be informed by using data and having an understanding of values and psychographics. That's it.